Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Trial Site News interview. I'm your host, Brandon, and today we'll be talking to Justin Goodman, the Senior Vice President for Advocacy and Public Policy at the White Coat Waste Project. It's a taxpayer watchdog group representing more than 3 million liberty and animal lovers. It aims to address concerns about the allocation of taxpayer funds exceeding $20 billion annually for what they perceive as wasteful and cruel experiments to animals. Justin, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.
So this month, your organization uncovered via FOIA previously undiscovered photos and videos that expose the NIH bioagent experiments program. Can you tell us what this lawsuit found?
Sure, yes. Since before 2020, we've been investigating NIH spending on bioagent research. Our first big expose was we were the first ones to expose how the National Institutes of Health, and specifically Anthony Fauci's division at the NIH, sent tax dollars to the Wuhan lab for those gain-of-function experiments that supercharged coronaviruses and that the FBI, the Department of Energy, and many others believe caused the pandemic with this dangerous animal experimentation. So since then, we've been really digging into how the NIH is spending its money, not only in foreign countries, but also here at home, and have discovered that there is a NIH bioagent lab out in Hamilton, Montana, that collects some of the deadliest and most contagious viruses in the world, like Ebola, like Lassa, Nipah, other hemorrhagic fevers that have kill rates in humans up to 100%, and conducts dangerous animal experiments, not only dangerous, but incredibly cool animal experiments. The NIH was refusing to release documents to us in response to our Freedom of Information Act requests. So we sued them. And as part of the lawsuit, not only did they turn over kind of experimental protocols or applications detailing what they're doing there to animals in these dangerous experiments, but also sent us videos and photos depicting exactly what's happening to animals with our tax dollars in these NIH laboratories, where, as the videos depict, these animals, including primates and piglets, are being infected by Ebola, being forced to inhale Ebola, being injected with things like COVID, and other, again, highly transmissible and in many cases fatal diseases that could cause another lab leak here on our own soil. It's happened before, and it's going to happen again if we're not careful.
So your organization shared some evidence with us for a story we posted on trialsitenews.com. One document was for a project called the Efficacy of DNA-Based Vaccine in Non-Human Primates Against Infection with CCHFV. And for our audience, that stands for Crimean Congo Hemorrhagic Fever Virus. Not the easiest thing to state. Can you share more details on this project?
Sure. So as I mentioned, the NIH has experimenters and works with, and not only has NIH experimenters, but funds outside organizations like EcoHealth Alliance, the nonprofit virus hunters who go around the world to very remote places and bring these viruses from bats and other animals into laboratories and then work to experiment on them to see if they can become more contagious to humans through experiments like gain-of-function testing, where they actually take natural viruses and intentionally try to make them more contagious to humans. So the NIH is going around the world with its partners in foreign countries and collecting these dangerous viruses, bringing them back into its own laboratories, and then in some cases trying to engineer and manipulate those viruses to make them more deadly and contagious, and then preemptively develop vaccines for them. Now, this experimentation and the Rocky Mountain Laboratory in Hamilton, Montana, that the NIH runs, this is kind of, right on the cusp of, depending on how you look at it, either bioweapons research or biodefense. And those are really two sides of the same coin, is, not only bringing these dangerous viruses into a lab, but also manipulating them in a way where there's actually no treatment available. And for some of these viruses, there is no treatment available. So they are trying to develop treatments for these viruses. On one hand, they say, in case they ever reach our shores, And on the other hand, there are lots of concerns that these viruses could be weaponized either by the United States or some bad actors in a foreign adversary country like China, where biosecurity experts have been saying for a long time, we shouldn't be collaborating with. So right here on U.S. soil, we are bringing these viruses from overseas, putting them in laboratories, and tinkering with them in ways that can make them cause an outbreak that's unstoppable.
Well, what about pain management? Do they use anesthesia, sedatives, or give any medication to the monkeys at this lab?
So the answer is no. We like to call these experiments maximum pain experiments, and these are tests in which animals are being infected with crippling, painful, debilitating viruses like Ebola, like Lassa, like Nipah, many of these bat-borne viruses like COVID. They infect them with these viruses, and then they want to see what happens when the virus progresses in these animals. So as they start to bleed internally and externally, they cannot walk, they have trouble breathing. In some cases, their eyes start bleeding. I mean, just horrendous effects from these viruses. The NIH experimenters completely withhold any pain management or relief because they want to see what happens. They want to see if their experimental treatments work. And in some cases, they just want to see how the virus, either they captured or the version they create in a lab, actually progresses in these animals to make them sick and kill them. And the kind of insult to injury of all of this, in addition to the incredible waste of tax dollars on these multi-million-dollar experiments, is that we're wasting animals' lives as well, because the NIH itself admits that over 90% of the drugs that they pass in these kind of animal tests, and they look like they're effective and safe in animal tests, fail when they get to people because they don't work or they're dangerous. So not only are they incredibly cruel and dangerous, but they're also incredibly wasteful. So whether folks are concerned with biosafety or animal welfare or government waste, this type of animal experimentation that the NIH is doing should really be a cause for alarm for everybody.
You mentioned in an email to Trial Site News that the FDA has required drug makers to conduct animal tests, but a new federal law co-sponsored by Rand Paul and Cory Booker enacted last year eliminated this outdated animal testing mandate. So to be clear, they do not have to test this way now.
So that's absolutely right. The federal mandate for animal testing for new drugs and treatments has been eliminated. Now, there's still FDA internal guidance documents and regulations that strongly encourage animal testing in some cases, and there's not a clear path for some companies to use alternatives because there's bureaucrats in the government who are still forcing or trying to force, in some cases, animal testing to take place. But fortunately, yes, we have worked with Rand Paul and Cory Booker and other members of Congress to eliminate that mandate and pave the way for the development of drugs and treatments without this kind of wasteful and cruel animal testing that it really is completely unnecessary, particularly in 2024 with the other technologies available. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, we are working with members of Congress who are specifically also interested in reforms inside the NIH, and particularly at the Rocky Mountain Lab in Hamilton, Montana. So we have been working with folks like Senator Joni Ernst, Senator Eric Schmidt, Congresswoman Nancy Mace, and Matt Rosendale, a Republican who represents Montana in Congress, to hold the NIH accountable for these experiments and ask questions about what is our tax dollar, how are our tax dollars actually being used at the Rocky Mountain Lab, what's being done to animals, are they doing gain of function experiments that are making these viruses more deadly and contagious to humans, what kind of biosecurity measures are in place, and if there is an accident in this laboratory, how's the public going to find out about it? So we're very proud that there's been some accountability measures put forth by members of Congress to get some answers from the NIH and ensure that they're not using our tax dollars on experiments that threaten humanity.
Your work initiated a response from Rep. Nancy Mace, who demanded accountability in a letter to the NIH director recently. I think she posted on X as well. She requested information on a controversial monkey breeding colony, I guess, discovered in South Carolina's first district, which she represents. thanks to your work. Have you heard from anyone else in Congress, or you're working with anyone else as a result of the discoveries from your organization?
Yeah, so back in 2021, as you mentioned, we uncovered an island called it's called Morgan Island, right off the coast of South Carolina, where the district where Nancy Mace represents. And here, starting in the 1980s, the NIH started bringing primates from the Caribbean to build a breeding colony here in the United States. And currently, there's over 3,500 monkeys being bred on this island off South Carolina. And each year, the NIH goes there and takes hundreds of them off this island and ships them to places like the Rocky Mountain Lab in Hamilton, Montana, for these deadly virus experiments. Nancy Mace, because she's an animal lover and also represents this congressional district and is on the House Oversight Committee, is demanding answers from the NIH about its management of this island, what it's costing taxpayers, which is in the tens of millions of dollars, why we actually need it, and just why this program has gone on for so long when we know more than ever that this type of experimentation is cruel and wasteful and unnecessary. So these are ultimately really great issues that are, unite folks from all ends of the political spectrum. Like you said, we've worked with Cory Booker on some of the FDA reform efforts. We work closely with Congressman Don Davis, Democrat from North Carolina, who's introduced legislation with Lisa McClain, Republican from Michigan, to cut NIH funding to laboratories in foreign countries. Henry Cuellar is working with Mike Gallagher in Congress and Buddy Carter on bipartisan legislation to defund gain-of-function experiments. So there is broad bipartisan support to stop particularly the NIH's most reckless and wasteful animal experiments that not only support our enemies, our foreign enemies, but also risk causing another pandemic. And if something like that is going to happen, Rocky Mountain Lab could be ground zero for that, given the fact that they're intentionally going out and collecting these dangerous viruses that are not endemic to the US, bringing them to a laboratory and risking release. Just to add insult to injury here, the Rocky Mountain Lab also employs very infamous gain-of-function experimenters who have in the past manipulated bird flu viruses to intentionally make them contagious to humans and very deadly. These people actually caused the US government to shut down funding for gain-of-function back in 2014. It's obviously been started up again, but we're employing these folks who have the toolkit and also the will to do this type of dangerous experimentation with our tax dollars, and we have to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Is there anything we haven't covered so far that you'd like to share with our audience?
No, that's been great.
Okay. So our final question, what can our viewers do to help if they'd like to get involved?
Well, we're a taxpayer advocacy group, and everyone's voice matters here, no matter where you live in the US. You have you have two senators and a member of Congress who have to listen to what you say. So please follow us on social media at White Coat Waste on all the different platforms. Whatever you use, we're there. Our website is whitecoatwaste.org, and join us. It's very easy to get involved. Sign up one of our letters to Congress. That'll add you to our mailing list, and you'll start getting updates about all the different campaigns we're working on and legislation we're working on. Right now, we're gearing up to start working on the 2025 spending bills for all the different federal agencies like the NIH, and making sure that our tax dollars are not allowed to be spent again in these foreign countries or in dangerous gain-of-function experiments here in the US, or just other cruel and painful experiments on dogs, cats, primates, and other animals. So whether you're an animal lover, a liberty lover, or both, we invite you to join our campaigns to help stop the money and stop the madness.
Yeah, we will link your website in the description of this video for sure. Additionally, your organization has found the lab is currently expanding its animal testing labs using $125 million of taxpayer money distributed by Congress as COVID relief funding. We do want to mention that Trial Site News contacted the NIH but did not receive a response as of today. Justin Goodman, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Brandon.
And for more unbiased news and opinion articles on the latest in scientific research, please visit trialsitenews.com.